A woman devoted to a cult brings a cult official into her home. She plans to perform an exorcism on her daughter. But in reality, the so-called exorcism is nothing more than the man violating the girl. The mother watches the entire scene without reacting. Instead, she waits eagerly for the ritual to be completed. In complete despair, Hitagi picks up the stationery in her hands and begins to fight back. The man is beaten until his head is covered in blood. As a result, the mother is punished by the cult, yet she blames everything on Hitagi. From that day on, she abandons her daughter entirely. The family falls apart, but Hitagi never once harbors hatred toward her mother. Instead, she continues to miss her deeply. It is then that Hitagi encounters a mysterious being known as the Heavy Crab. The Heavy Crab makes a deal with her. Afterward, it takes away Hitagi's weight. Along with her longing for her mother, Hitagi is finally able to grow up like a normal child. But the shadows of her childhood trauma never truly fade from her heart. And because of her deal with the Heavy Crab, her weight is reduced to only 5 kilograms. Afraid that others will discover her secret, Hitagi stuffs stationery inside her clothes to artificially increase her weight. She also avoids all contact with her classmates. Over time, she becomes the most isolated student in the class. Then one day, Hitagi accidentally falls down a staircase. At that very moment, a boy named Coyomi suddenly appears and saves her. But instead of thanking him, Hitagi immediately pulls out a box cutter and shoves it into his mouth. She warns him not to tell anyone about her weight. Then she pushes a stapler into his mouth as well. Coyomi hurriedly nods twice, but to his shock, Hitagi actually staples his mouth shut. After warning him once more, she turns and walks away. She fears that her fragile, peaceful life might be disrupted once again. What she doesn't know is that Koyomi's true identity is that of a vampire. After she leaves, the wounds in Koyomi's mouth heal almost instantly. He immediately chases after her. Hitagi is stunned that Koyomi dares to follow her. She quickly takes out all the stationery she had hidden on her body to protect herself. But Koyomi tells her to look at his mouth. Only then does Hitagi realize in shock that the injuries inside his mouth have completely healed. Koyomi tells Hitagi that he might be able to help her solve her weight problem. Just like that, Hitagi gets on the back of Koyomi's bicycle. Perhaps even she herself doesn't understand why she trusts him so easily. The two of them arrive at an abandoned building. Inside lives a man named Oshino. He is an expert who deals with supernatural phenomena. Koyomi gradually piques Hitagi's curiosity. She can't understand what kind of person he is to help her so selflessly, because ever since she was a child, Hitagi has been treated like a monster by others. No one was ever willing to get close to her. Oshino asks about Hitagi's situation, but Hitagi refuses to revisit that painful memory. She only tells him that the Heavy Crab took her weight away. After hearing this, Oshino laughs. He tells them that the Heavy Crab is actually a type of god, and since it is a god, it would never arbitrarily take a human's weight. Oshino seems to see straight through Hitagi's heart. He explains that Hitagi didn't have her weight stolen at all. Instead, she made a deal with the Heavy Crab. It was Hitagi herself who offered her weight as a sacrifice. Even so, Oshino agrees to help her. Out of consideration for Koyomi, he tells Hitagi to go home and take a bath first. He will prepare the ritual here. Hitagi returns home with Koyomi. The sound of Hitagi showering is unusually loud. It causes Koyomi's thoughts to wander. But what he never expects is for Hitagi to walk out of the bathroom completely naked. Koyomi immediately shuts his eyes. In truth, Hitagi is trying to thank him in her own way. She has always been alone. No friends, no family. Perhaps she believes this is the only way she can express her gratitude to Koyomi. Or perhaps she has already fallen for this kind-hearted boy. As Hitagi dries her hair, Koyomi stands there, visibly awkward. Thankfully, the buzzing of the hairdryer covers the pounding of their hearts. Just as they are about to leave, Hitagi suddenly tells Koyomi that if everything goes well, they should go eat crab together. At this moment, Koyomi doesn't yet realize that for Hitagi to say something like this is the highest form of trust she can give. After that, they go to find Oshino. By then, Oshino has already changed into formal ceremonial attire. He then leads Hitagi to the altar. The ritual to summon the Heavy Crab begins. Oshino asks Hitagi a series of questions. He asks her name, her age, her height, her weight, her hobbies. But when Oshino asks her what her most painful memory is, an unnatural expression appears on Hitagi's face. In the end, she slowly begins to speak about it. The wound buried deepest in her heart is torn open once again. The pain is unbearable, as if it's ripping her apart. When she finishes saying everything, Oshino tells her to open her eyes. Standing before her is the heavy crab that took away her weight. The next moment, the heavy crab slams her into the wall. It is furious over Hitagi breaking their deal. Oshino immediately steps in to help. Although the heavy crab is a god, it is no match for Oshino. Just as Oshino is about to resolve everything by force, Hitagi suddenly speaks up. She says she wants to personally reclaim her feelings for her mother. In the past, she chose to let the heavy crab help her escape, while she hid away, enjoying a peaceful and stable life. But now, she is ready to accept the pain. She no longer wants to run from it. Hitagi kneels down. She begs the heavy crab to return her feelings for her mother. In the end, moved by Hitagi's plea, the heavy crab returns both her feelings for her mother and her weight. In truth, Hitagi once suffered from a serious illness as a child. It was because of this that her mother began to believe in the cult. Later, Hitagi recovered through proper medical treatment, but her mother credited everything to the cult instead. Then, after that incident occurred, her mother left her completely. Hitagi once hated herself. She also hated her mother. But with Koyomi's help, Hitagi finally learns to accept those painful memories. However, in Oshino's eyes, painful memories are meaningless, because Hitagi herself hasn't really changed. What matters most is that she has reclaimed her weight. But Hitagi says that after experiencing all of this, she has gained something far more important. She has found a precious friend. Later on, Hitagi is still just as sharp-tongued and tsundere as ever. Just as Oshino says, nothing seems to have changed. But now, by her side, there is a boy named Coyomi, and that makes her feel that she is no longer alone. Mayoi grows up in an unfortunate family. Ever since she can remember, her parents argue every single day. The atmosphere at home is always oppressive and tense. Finally, when Mayoi is 10 years old, her parents decide to get divorced. Not only is Mayoi forcibly taken away by her father, she is also strictly forbidden from seeing her mother. Whenever Mayoi misses her mom, all she can do is look through photos of her in her room. Perhaps only in moments like these does she remember that she is a child who once had a mother. But as time passes, her mother's image grows more and more unfamiliar in Mayoi's mind. Now, even when Mayoi looks at her mother's photograph, she can no longer be certain that the woman in the picture is truly her mother. Loneliness and anxiety flood her heart in that instant. Mayoi's intense longing for maternal love pushes her to make a decision. On Mother's Day, Mayoi puts on her backpack and sets out alone to search for her mother. But for some unknown reason, no matter how hard she tries, Mayoi can never reach her mother's home. Even so, she never gives up. The desire to see her mother even once clings to her heart like an obsession. The kind-hearted Koyomi notices her and asks if she needs help. But Mayoi is extremely resistant to talking to strangers. She even completely ignores Koyomi. Koyomi has never seen such a rude little girl before, so he decides to teach her a lesson. But Mayoi refuses to back down. And just like that, the two of them actually get into a fight. In the end, it ends with Koyomi's victory. Standing nearby, Hitagi is utterly speechless at Koyomi's behavior. At this moment, Mayoi slowly gets up from the ground. This time, she behaves much more obediently. She then hands the address in her hand to Koyomi. After looking at it, Koyomi and Hitagi decide to take Mayoi to the address written on the note. Along the way, Koyomi asks whether the address is Mayoi's home. Mayoi stays silent for a moment. Then she tells Koyomi that the address actually belongs to a relative. Mayoi doesn't dare say it is her mother's home, because the word mother feels painfully unfamiliar to her. It even feels less warm than the word relative. Koyomi doesn't press her any further, but as they continue walking, Koyomi gradually notices something is wrong. Not only does Mayoi keep getting lost, even he and Hitagi can't find the address on the note. They take wrong turns and get lost again and again. Hitagi pulls out her phone to use navigation, only to discover that the GPS isn't working properly either. Koyomi immediately senses that something is off. At that moment, Mayoi suddenly says that she will never be able to reach her mother's home. She says she's just a lost cow. After saying this, Mayoi sinks into despair. Koyomi realizes that the situation is no longer just about getting lost. He quickly calls Oshino. Oshino tells Koyomi that the reason they're lost is because they've encountered an aberration called the lost cow. He then asks Hitagi to come find him. He says he will explain to her how to deal with the lost cow. Hitagi immediately hops on her bicycle and heads toward Oshino's location, leaving only Koyomi and Mayoi standing there together. Koyomi suddenly recalls what Mayoi said earlier and asks her why she referred to her mother's home as a relative's house. Mayoi hesitates for a long time before finally telling Koyomi about her parents. She has always longed desperately for her mother's love, yet has never been able to receive it. As Koyomi listens, his heart begins to ache along with her words. In fact, today is Mother's Day. Koyomi didn't want to go home and spend time with his mother, which is why he ended up meeting Mayoi on the street. Koyomi's relationship with his mother isn't very good. After entering high school, his mother often scolds him, but when Koyomi looks at Mayoi's sorrowful expression, he feels something he can't quite put into words. It turns out that simply having a mother is already a kind of happiness. Koyomi thinks for a long time. He wants to say something to comfort Mayoi, but just then, Oshino calls. He tells Koyomi that he has already explained how to deal with the lost cow to Hitagi, and the reason for this call is to tell Koyomi something else. The name Mayoi Hachikuji is a homophone for the word calamity. After saying this, Oshino hangs up. His words leave Koyomi feeling confused and unsettled. At that moment, Hitagi finally returns. She also brings back the method to resolve the lost cow. It turns out the reason they kept getting lost was because they were unconsciously following the lost cow. As long as they stop following it, they won't get lost anymore. But Koyomi is puzzled. They never even noticed the lost cow. So how could they have been following it the whole time? Hitagi slowly explains that she actually cannot see Mayoi at all. In truth, Mayoi has already died. She isn't possessed by a monster. She herself is the monster. She is the lost cow. This is what Oshino told her. Koyomi can hardly believe it. Mayoi is actually the lost cow. Hitagi continues. Only people who don't want to go home are able to see the lost cow. Because Koyomi didn't want to spend Mother's Day with his mom, he was able to see Mayoi. At this point, Mayoi finally reveals the truth. While searching for her mother, she died in a traffic accident, but her obsession with seeing her mother again turned her into a ghost-like existence. She is destined to wander the roads in search of her mother forever, and to never reach her. After hearing everything, Koyomi is overwhelmed with pain. What happened to Mayoi is simply too cruel. She will forever miss her mother, yet will never be able to stand before her, and anyone who tries to help her will become lost because of her. For her entire existence, Mayoi can never reach the place where her mother is. Even so, Koyomi has no intention of giving up. He decides that no matter what, he will take Mayoi to her mother. Hitagi laughs when she hears this, because this is exactly the Koyomi she likes. Kind and righteous. Whenever someone in trouble appears before him, he will never turn away. Hitagi then explains the solution to the lost cow. Although Mayoi, who has already passed away, causes people to lose their way, this only applies to roads she once knew. Mayoi died a long time ago. Her actual age is even older than Koyomi's. During that time, many new roads have been built in the city, and the city's layout has changed completely. As long as they walk along newly constructed roads, they won't get lost. After wandering for quite a while, they finally arrive at Mayoi's mother's home. But the city's new development has not only led Mayoi to the address, it has also turned her mother's house into an empty lot. In the end, Mayoi turns into light and disappears. Koyomi feels deep sorrow. At that moment, Hitagi suddenly asks Koyomi if he wants to be her boyfriend. The unexpected question leaves Koyomi standing there, completely stunned. After thinking for a long time, Koyomi finally agrees. At the very end of the story, a girl with twin pigtails and a large backpack, suddenly appears in front of Koyomi. In the end, although Mayoi never finds her mother, she finally brings her endless wandering to an end, and finds peace in another way, and that release becomes the final salvation brought to her by Koyomi's kindness. When the outline of her old home turns into dust in the wind, Mayoi finally understands that what she was searching for was never a house, but the words she never got to say. "Lam, I miss you so much."